Light grows so distant, the storm never stops. I am broken, and all things around me have died. I weep for the end of all things. He has won. Oh, he has beaten us. Collected on Palahat Kev, 1173, 16 seconds pre-death by the Silent Gatherers. Subject was a Thalen sailor. There are many predictions floating around out there for Book 5, and I thought I'd go ahead and throw my hat into the ring with a couple of mine as well. I figured while I'm at it, I'd also share some of the more popular theories out there among the fandom. Some of these have more evidence going for them than others. Some are little more than the gut feelings of some fans, but I'm going to share some of them here. And it probably goes without saying, but this video will contain spoilers for all of Cosmere books. It won't have anything from any of the sample chapters for Book 5 though, because I'm not going to be reading those. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the predictions. Number 1. Kaladin Dies. There's not really a whole bunch to discuss with this theory, it's just a sentiment I've seen passed around the fandom several times. I'm going to go ahead and also lump in the other popular theories that run in the same vein here, such as Dalinar dies, Adolin dies, so on and so forth. I guess this is more just a general feeling that a lot of fans have that this book is going to have some serious character deaths. 2. The Child Champion. This is probably the most popular theory amongst the entire fandom and has mostly to do with this death rattle from chapter 57 of The Way of Kings. I hold the suckling child in my hands, a knife at his throat, and know that all who live wish me to let the blade slip, spill its blood upon the ground over my hands, and with it gain us further breath to draw. The theory goes basically that Odium is going to choose Gavinar, Dalinar's nephew, to be his champion. This would put Dalinar in a position where he may actually forfeit the contest, thereby allowing Odium to win. Typically, the evidence given is the death rattle I just listed, as well as how much time Dalinar spends in Book 4 building a relationship with Gavinor. Personally, I'm not a big fan of this theory, but it has been going strong since the release of Book 4. 3. Adolin will bond Maya as an edge dancer. I'd say that this is a little bit less popular of a theory than others, as there is a big portion of the fandom that wants to see Adolin remain as our non-radiant POV character. However, there are definitely many out there that believe Adolin is going to form a Nahal bond with Maya either after she is fully revived or it will be what actually revives her. I folded in the Maya will be revived theory to this one since they are so connected, and to be honest, most fans don't view Maya's revival as a theory at this point, but more of an inevitability. My personal theory is that Adolin will actually end up both reviving Maya and, based on absolutely no evidence whatsoever, bond the Night Watcher as the third bondsmith. I used to like this theory a lot more just after Book 4 came out, as it would provide a nice sort of symmetry having all three bondsmiths be Colins. However, after my last reread, I have a slightly less crack-brain theory that I actually think is more likely to happen to Adolin. 4. Adolin will be Odium's champion. I'll admit, the few people I've run this theory past haven't been the biggest fans of it. However, it does make a certain sort of sense to me, and I did see it passed around a little during the time when the child champion theory was extremely popular. So to be clear, this one isn't my theory per se, but I do like it quite a lot. A lot of to-do is made in Book 3 about how Dalinar is able to resist Odium at the end of the book because of the time he has spent learning to repress his urges. However, Adolin, well, he's never expressed the same level of bloodthirst and lawlessness that Dalinar has, still does have very violent urges. And the one time we've seen him confronted with these urges on screen without his father there to hold him back, he snaps and kills Sadeas. So if Taravangian brings the full might of Odium upon Adolin in a moment of weakness, just like Raiz did with Dalinar, I think it is possible for Adolin to break and submit. The nice thing about this theory, despite the fact that it isn't very popular among the fans, is that it dovetails so nicely with the child champion theory and seems to fit the death rattle from that one just as much. If confronted with his own son in the contest, who's to say if Dalinar would be able to bring himself to kill him? And while Adolin is not a literal sucking babe, like is mentioned in the death rattle, we do have the flashback scene from Book 3 of Dalinar holding Adolin just after his birth, and we know that moment had an incredibly profound impact upon Dalinar. So if we take the death rattle more metaphorically, then it still fits quite nicely. While I'm not personally 100% convinced of this theory, I do find it much more plausible than the child champion, and would not be surprised to see it actually happen. 5. Teravangian was wrong. Very, very wrong. This is my own personal theory, and I have to say everyone that I've shared it with has been convinced of it. I have shared it on Reddit a couple of times, so if you've seen it before, that would be where. But as far as I'm aware, I haven't seen anyone else online talking about this. I could be wrong. If I am, let me know in the comments. Basically, it goes as follows. After Teravangian ascends, he has a brief conversation with Cultivation, at the end of which he thinks to himself, "Oh, you wonderful creature, you have no idea what you have done." The thing is, he's dead wrong. Teravangian thinks that he is in a better position than Cultivation, that he somehow is going to take advantage of what she's given him in ways she did not expect, but she can expect it. During the last vision in the Way of Kings, Honor tells Dalinar that, "I cannot see the future completely. Cultivation, she is better at it than I." It's as if the future is a shattering window. The further you look, the more pieces that window breaks into. The near future, it can be anticipated, but the distant future, I can only guess. So we've got Honor telling us directly that Cultivation is better at seeing the future than he is. But there's more. Cultivation, by necessity, has to be able to see through the distortion that Renarin makes when trying to see the future. Otherwise, she would have had no way to know that it was possible to cause Teravangian's ascension. So not only is it implied here that she can see through the distortion that other shards make, as that appears to take a lesser amount of skill at foresight, but we know directly that she can see things that Odium is entirely blind to. It's also very important to mention that suddenly in Stormlight, for the very first time ever in the Cosmere, and in a way that is somewhat antithetical to the ending of Mistborn Era 1 as well as Warbreaker, we begin to be told multiple times not to trust people who claim to know the future. Hoyd in particular says this on several occasions. In earlier Cosmere novels, such as Mistborn and Warbreaker, visions and prophecies of the future actually end up being very important and extremely beneficial to the protagonists. But now, in the series that introduces a shard that seems to be one of the best at foresight of any we've known, we're suddenly told to distrust that ability and those who hold it. I mean, maybe this is all supposed to be foreshadowing for something to do with Renarin, but that seems far less likely to me. It certainly can't be denied that all of this fear-mongering about foresight is meant to foreshadow something. And so to get to the crux of things, Cultivation is the true antagonist of the Stormlight Archive, and Teravangian is in a lot of trouble. There's more evidence to support this theory as well. Tanavast, the Vessel of Honor, was in a romantic relationship with Cultivation before the breaking, and yet for some reason she stands by as he dies during false desolation. A shard cannot attack another shard directly without exposing themselves, but we have no indication that one shard could not support another shard that is being attacked. And in fact, we do have evidence to the contrary, as we know that Mercy was somehow involved in the ancient fight that Odium had with Ambition. This begs the question, why would Cultivation stand by as someone she loved was killed? It also bears pointing out that Brandon has said on multiple occasions that shards and their intents are not inherently moral or immoral. In the early days of the Cosmere, Brandon presented us with shards which seemed to easily align with our preconceptions. Devotion was good, Dominion was bad. Yes, I know I'm making a simplification on that one because they are mingled in the door, but there's no denying the easily defined difference in the major religions of Cell. So clearly their differing intents are still having impacts on the world at large in differing ways. Preservation was good, ruin was bad. Honor was good, odium was bad. However, Cultivation is only name-dropped once in the Way of Kings, and I struggle to think of a reason Brandon would have reminded fans so many times that shards are amoral unless he planned to pull a switcheroo on us at some point. At one point after Oathbringer, I actually thought it might be odium, with his insistence that his actual intent was passion. However, that seems to have just been something Raiz was insisting on now, and while it may not have been entirely false, it was certainly untrue. My last and most damning piece of evidence is the way Brandon has structured every story he has ever written. You see, he never likes to tell you who the villain is up front. It's not until the very last chapter of All Ascension that we learn who Ruin is. In Elantris, Hrathen is presented as the villain, even though it is in fact Deloth. In Warbreaker, we are presented first with the God King, then with Trelades, before finally revealing Bluefingers as the actual villain. My last addendum to this theory is that the Contest of Champions is not as important as it's currently being presented to us as. In fact, I would go so far as to predict that it will take place at the end of either Part 2 or 3 of Wind and Truth. right before Cultivation's true nature is revealed, and the book will actually end with some sort of confrontation with, and probably a loss to her. 6. There is an Unmade in Shinobar. I felt that I couldn't end this video without at least mentioning this theory. I haven't seen it discussed that much myself, but it has been passed around. There has been speculation about which Unmade or Unmades might be there, but I haven't seen any one theory which I've found terribly convincing. Personally, I think this theory is truly a Rapho. Lastly, I have to mention this, or someone will say something in the comments. Kaladin swearing the 5th ideal isn't really a theory, as Brandon has come as close as he possibly can to confirming it outright. Maybe I'm wrong here, but when asked if it would happen, he replied that there were 5 books in the first half and 5 ideals to swear, so it sure would make a lot of sense. It could be a misdirect, but given how keen he is on symmetry in this series, not just in-world, but also in the very structure of the books, I'd be rather surprised if it didn't happen. Anyways, those are just some theories for Book 5. If you have any of your own, or you think I left out any of the big ones, please tell me about them in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking it. I have part 2 of my History of Roshar video in the works right now, so if you're interested in that, please subscribe to the channel, and thank you for watching.